Okay. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Okay, great. Welcome. Thank you to Adam and the rest of the crew for putting this together. To Meraki for hosting this. Don't forget to tip the bartenders. They're awesome up there and very knowledgeable on everything. Yeah, so first of all, I'm not a therapist. I don't diagnose or treat mental illnesses. But what I do is therapeutic. I'm a somatic experiencing practitioner and a psychedelic integration specialist. So I help people heal from religious trauma. And first of all, I'm not here to say that religion is bad or that anything that you guys believe is wrong or bad or anything. We all have different belief systems, but these communities bring a lot of really good things to people, right? These churches and these religious leaders, they're here to do good. At least I hope their intentions are good. Not all of them, but they're still led by humans, and humans are imperfect. So, and you know, I don't agree that they try to control us, try to control how you think, how you feel, how you should act, what you should wear, who you should marry. It's like manipulation, mind control. And again, I don't condone illegal substances either. I am a safety and harm reduction approach. So just wanted to disclaimer, I don't condone any illegal activities. But being a somatic experiencing practitioner, let's try to get into our parasympathetic nervous system. So if you all want to do an exercise with me, if this feels comfortable, awesome. If not, you can just lean your head back, but grab both of your hands like this and bring them up behind your head and let it just cradle. Allow your head to just cradle a little bit. Let's just take a breath. And with your head still looking straight, I'm going to have you just move your eyes to the right. And just look to the right. You can look at something specific or nothing at all. As your eyes are gazing to the right, we are trying to drop into our parasympathetic nervous system, the part of us that is rest and digest. You may feel a deeper breath, maybe a yawn, nothing at all. This is the part of us that are responsible for social engagement and learning, taking in information. Okay, we're gonna do the same thing to the left. Just move your eyes to the left. This is really for me more than anyone else. Yeah. There we go. And you can do this at any time. Whenever you are feeling overwhelmed or you're feeling activated, just coming into this space. And if you want, you can do it a second time, but for time's sake, I'll just end right there. Great. This is my second time public speaking, so I have my nifty notes. Yeah.
You got
Thank
this.
you. So first I'm just gonna talk about how did I get here? How am I qualified for this, or really just want to talk about my story and how I overcome religious trauma. So I was raised a Jehovah's Witness. It's a pretty high control religion. Yeah, some of you guys may know what it is. But I just remember being 5 years old, sitting in the Kingdom Hall. The Kingdom Hall is the church, is the place where everybody goes to watch the people and the elders speak. And the children and the adults come together in the same room, and we're just supposed to sit there and not move at 5 years old for 3 nights a week. And I literally was just dissociating the whole time for 2 hours, 3 nights a week. And there was a point like in the middle of it, we would sing and we would go to the bathroom, and I would always like, okay, I'm gonna use the restroom. And I remember seeing this one girl, and I was like, oh hi, like this other woman, I just know who she is. And my mom like shook my hand. It was like, mm-mm. And I was like, no. And everybody's looking at her, like looking at me, and my mom's like, she's disfellowshipped. We don't talk to her. And I was like, disfellowship? What does disfellowship mean? She's like, I'll talk to you about it later. Disfellowship means that if you do anything that is wrong, that the whole congregation and your family and everybody will disown you. Because my mom told me that God is always watching me, always judging me, always knows what's happening inside of my head and my heart. And I just wanted to be a really good kid. I wanted to do so good in front of God's eyes or Jehovah's eyes. I didn't want to do anything bad. So I distinctly remember at that point, like I couldn't trust myself. I couldn't trust my heart. I couldn't trust my intuition. I couldn't trust anything because I didn't want to not make it into the new world, right? So Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe in hell, but they believe that there's going to be a new world, and that God's always judging. So I remember at one point, like my parents told me, and I love my parents, by the way, like they're really awesome. And the school called them and they were like, is Erin being abused? And they're like, no. And my parents never hit me, like they're honestly so awesome. But I was emotionally abused, right? Emotionally neglected, emotionally like, I dissociated. So that's a trauma response of like being frozen and not being able to like communicate or talk or do anything. And while other kids were playing sports, being in dance class, playing outside with others, I was just sitting inside the Kingdom Hall again like 3 to 4 times a week. I had to sit silently. I already said that part, but I sat silently in the Kingdom Hall. And so I just remember, like, even as a toddler, like trying to get away and run away, like, get me out of here. My mom would put her hand over my mouth and, try to hold me down to keep me tight, and just like getting so frustrated. So eventually my nervous system would shut down, and I'd go into complete shutdown mode and freeze. But I was an emotional child, or an obedient child, right? So I did everything that I was asked to. I sat quietly. I didn't make much noise. I made sure that my emotions weren't a bother to anybody. And I just kind of tucked everything inside, just like keeping it all deep, deep down, away from everybody, including myself. So as you could imagine, like being raised in a very high controlled religion, there's like really awesome, these like indoctrinations. So this one Bible verse, 1 Corinthians 11:3 says, "But I would have you know that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Christ is God." And then there's another verse, Ethiopians 5:24. Now the church submits to Christ, so also wives submit to their husbands in everything. I wanted to be like a really good submissive wife. Like I wanted to obey God so bad. It's like, this is the way to the new world. I just know it. And so I eventually got married at 20, like a really good Christian Jehovah's Witness does. You get married, you have children, you do the whole thing. I never had kids, but I tried everything to be a good wife, but I was terrified, right? I was like terrified of what did I say here? Oh, I was just terrified of myself, really. Like terrified of my own feelings, my own thoughts. I didn't know how to be my own person. So, yeah, it turns out, I got married at 20. Turns out I was married to an abusive, narcissistic person, which happens very often in these high-controlled religious groups. And night after night, I was yelled at. He manipulated me into telling me that everything I was doing in the house was wrong. Everything that was wrong with the car, with the bills, with everything was wrong, and it was all my fault. And I believed him, to be honest, because I'm supposed to submit to him. And he would just like follow me around and stalk me. It was a very terrible situation. Told me who friends I could have, how I could dress, where I could work, if I could work. Couldn't have a relationship with my sister because she was worldly. Things got really bad, and I'm gonna get emotional really quick, so I'm just gonna take a moment.
We got you.
Thank
We
you.
got this.
Whew. But yeah, so one time he grabbed my neck and threw me up against the wall, and I was like, fuck this, I deserve better. Like, I know I deserve better. I didn't know what better was because I was told anything outside of the religion was bad. Everything out in the world was evil. And I knew that this wasn't right. So he left. He left for a weekend, and that's when I escaped. I was like, I'm out of here. And I went to the elders, right? Because that's what you do. You go to the elders to ask for support. And they asked me 2 questions. One was our marriage bed, was there adultery? Was our marriage bed dirty? And 2, was I performing my wifely duties? And I was like, my husband abuses me, and I'm needing support. And they're like, well, you're not scripturally able to marry because the only way to get a divorce is if there's adultery. So I had $5 to my name, and I moved into my sister's garage, and this is when I found psychedelics.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great.
This was 2008. I was 23. There was no any community, at least not that I had knew of. And my brother was like, you know, a rebel. He was so awesome. So he was growing weed out in Havasu in some grow house somewhere, I don't know. And he was like, you should come to Havasu and hang out with me. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna come. And so here I am out in Havasu, and I'm like, I'm ready for this. I'm ready to take these mushrooms. Let's just do it. And he handed me some. I didn't weigh it. I didn't know how much it took. Had no idea. I think this is a lot of everybody's first experiences. And it was beautiful, you guys. It was so awesome. I connected with myself, connected with the earth, saw everything was alive. I was baptizing myself in the water, just like cleansing all that shit out in Havasu. Like, thank you to the lake, thank you to the land. The bushes were there protecting me. It was just really amazing. I finally felt free, like true freedom for the first time, or a glimpse of freedom. Really, I think true freedom came later, but it just felt so powerful. And so for the next 10 years, I just would go to the desert and do psychedelics kind of on my own, with no really guide or anything. Just knew this was something that I needed to do. And I was coming home to myself, really like healing different parts of myself. But there was still something there, and I was continuously falling back into these like abusive relationships. Like, these guys looked really good on paper, and they had like good jobs and stuff, but for whatever reason, like, I'd land into another abusive one, and land into another abusive one. And I couldn't figure it out. I just was like, what's going on? And so I got married again. It happened again. I was 28, 29, and this one only lasted 3 months. But he ended up hitting me, and I was like, oh my God, again, all right. I remember thinking, like, no one's ever gonna hit me ever again. I'm like crawling in my own skin. I just don't remember. I'm like laying down on the ground, doing what, again, any other like person would do who was raped, at least what I did. And I just prayed, like, just like, help me. Like, how do I get out of this situation? How do I like put God in my heart? Like, show me Jesus. Put Jesus in my heart. Like, I needed to know like the truth. I found myself with a somatic experiencing practitioner. I didn't know that's what she was when I found her. I had no idea what somatic experiencing was, but it was pretty amazing because all the things that I've learned from my psychedelic experiences, she just was able to like integrate it in a different way, like locating it in my body. And I'll talk a little bit more about somatic experiencing later, but there was like a lot of trauma that was locked up in my body that was just needing to get released. So yeah, I just laid down and I prayed and I was like, dear God, show me who you are, reveal what I am ready to see. Show me Christ, please. If Jesus is real, please put him in my heart and let me know him. So the next day, I was thinking to myself, like, okay, someone's going to give me a book on Jesus. Somebody's going to give me a book on something. Like, I'm ready. And I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about the they, them pronouns. And I was like, you know, when I was a little girl, I was a tomboy. Like, I always played with the boys and, like, played basketball and, like, did all these things. And I was thinking, like, oh, it's because I didn't want to be a female, like, because I didn't like the way that women were treated in the church or in the Kingdom Hall. And because men were more accepted than women were. And so my somatic practitioner was like, well, like, let's find where's this hate coming from? Like, can we just like find it and like get there? And it was in my stomach, and all of a sudden my body turned into like shame, and I was like, oh God, I don't know if I can say this. And she's like, let it out. And all of a sudden, like, this big ball comes out, and I was like, fuck you, Jehovah. Fuck you, God. Fuck you, man. Fuck you. Like, how dare you treat us like this? Like, this is fucked up. Dude, but after I did that, like, my heart exploded, and I found my power, and I was like, oh, shit, this is me. Like, okay, I get it now. This is awesome. So, yeah, I finally was able to heal the trauma bond with God, right? The God who's supposed to be loving, who's supposed to be there for me, but yet is judging me and telling me that I'm shameful or sinful. So I had to go through the ultimate breakup in order to heal that trauma bond with all the relationships that I've been in. I always tell people I don't have daddy issues, I have God issues. So for the first time I felt love, I felt acceptance, I felt at peace. I was free from the chains that the religion had placed on me. I actually felt no shame, I felt no guilt. I felt empowered to speak my truth and to speak it to the whole world. So I've been on this path of healing my voice so that I can show up in places like this and continue speaking to tell people the power that these medicines have. Because I found, so after 15 years of deep work with my nervous system and psychedelics, I'm now able to regulate my nervous system, my emotions. I've come to trust myself, and I'm always learning of new ways to develop my frontal cortex so that I have more like cognitive skills. Thanks to psychedelics too, I think that they're a huge component on like rewiring and recreating new pathways. But there are hidden gems, the hidden golden nuggets that are inside the shadow. So going to that shadow space is where we can like really bring out the things that are most hidden. I think when we can go to those spaces, then we're most liberated. So don't be afraid of the shadow. The shadow is, I think, the most powerful part. But yeah, now I'm a psychedelic integration specialist and a somatic experiencing practitioner too, helping others heal from religious trauma. So what is religious trauma, and like why is it so different than regular trauma? Well, it rocks you to your core belief system. It's your life force, the energy that flows through you and to and through the earth. It's your foundation as a human, like your upbringing is your foundation. This spirituality that you want to trust so badly and so deeply is turned against you for power and control. So trauma is something that happens too fast, too soon, or continuously over time, and long periods of time. It can be something that's like emotional. It can also be like a car accident or surgery. Early childhood development can cause 4 responses. So there's either you're going to try to run, get away from a perceived threat. You're going to try to fight your way from the threat. Or if those 2 don't work, then you're going to freeze. And that is a lot for like early childhood development is freeze state, which usually turns into depression. Or there's the people-pleasing state, or the fawn, right? Like trying to like please the people that are around you to stay in connection, or because they might hurt you, you want to make sure that they're safe, that they're good, so then that way you're safe. So it just overwhelms your nervous system, so you don't have the capacity to regulate yourself. So not everyone who was raised in a high-controlled religious group are traumatized, by the way. So only 20% of people who are raised in a high-control group or a cult are actually traumatized. 80% of people go through these experiences and are totally fine. So I just want to like first say that like not everyone's going to have these types of experiences. But I don't know if you guys are familiar with Gabor Mate. He's a trauma specialist, and he says there's 2 biggest things that we have when we're developing our attachment as children. Our attachment to the connection around us, whether it be like our family, our community, our church, and our authenticity. So when our culture or religion instills values on us, or if there's an ancestral burden, you sacrifice your authenticity for that attachment connection, again, to your family and to your community or to your religion. And this is either a trauma that happens or a decision made for you. Like, you have to think this way, you have to feel this way, you have to act this way, you have to dress this way in order to like be in this group. And you learn that your true authentic self is not safe to be seen. So think of people like in the LGBTQ community, or maybe sexual expression, talking to worldly people or people outside of the religion. You may not be able to express yourself by playing certain sports or singing or dancing or creating art or certain art. What happens to those young parts of you that are not able to express themselves and be within that fundamental part of you that's not appropriate for your survival? This creates a whole complex of issues. As you grow up and live your life according to the instilled values from your community, there are parts of you that are unlived. And this unlived part of you holds part of your life force. And so if your ego can't hold on to these unlived parts of you, if they aren't able to, like, this life force, this authenticity of yourself isn't able to be expressed, then it comes back as chronic dis-ease, illness, dysfunctional relationships, depression, anxiety, confusing emotional reactions, difficulty connecting with others, and dissociated from internal experience. So a lot of people are living from unlived life. There are parts of them that don't have the space to have that lived experience. So psychedelics takes down those barriers, and then we can come face to face to those unlived parts of ourselves. We can like move past the shame they come through, or the guilt may come through, and then all of a sudden we're like met with our little like 8-year-old self, and we're like, oh yeah, that's right, that's me. Oh, this is so awesome. And then your personality changes, and then you get to live, you're like, I know this person deep down, and I didn't even know that it was here. And sometimes those pieces don't even want to be seen or felt or experienced, because they're just like, hey, we've just been like chilling here, hanging out, waiting, but yet we're still so afraid. And so psychedelics has been really helpful at just like going straight to the core of those pieces, those like parts of us. I don't know if you guys know what internal family systems is, but I work a lot with internal family systems too, and somatics. But this is what we call in yogic terms in alignment. Most people are suffering because they're out of alignment. There's all these parts that aren't being able to fit into your conscious personality. And so the work is making room for that, confronting the protectors and the boundaries that are carrying this pain and the burden. So when you push away your pain, or you express and release the pain, they still won't let go of the burden. So you have to like talk to them and like be with them and welcome them in and like communicate with them. We're not trying to push anything away, because then you're actually pushing a part of yourself away, and that doesn't necessarily work. The more we resist or push away, the more it just gets bigger. And it's the same idea with a lot of indigenous communities. When they say trauma happens, or when someone is suffering, they lost their soul. They believe the soul becomes disembodied. There are parts of you that are left. So understanding indoctrination. How do we heal from this? Like, what's the process? And I imagine that most of you, if you've come here, you probably already like understand your indoctrination, or maybe have like dismantling your old belief systems. But really, it's just about breaking free from the religious trauma and like understanding how you were indoctrinated, and like examining your belief systems and your practices that you were taught, as well as like what like beliefs were enforced in you from your community and from your family and from your religion. And so, you know, sometimes we don't know. We're like, wait, was that manipulation? Wait, was that really that? And I think coming in with those types of like intentions when you do medicine, like, hey, was I indoctrination? Like, you can set like specific intentions to like learn about your past. And then deconstructing your old belief system, again, like, you get to keep what you want to keep, and then you get to get rid of what you want to get rid of, and you get to create your own spiritual reality, and nobody has to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. And it's so liberating when you're able to like find out what your beliefs is, like what do you actually believe, and yeah, creating new ones. So yes, we're just, when we use psychedelics to help like release the barriers and the protectors, then you can access those parts of yourself that have been suppressed, to come home to yourself with the connection with the earth, the connection with your own spirituality and your own spiritual path. What is somatic experiencing? I know, like, you probably heard, oh, somatic, but what is it, and who created it? Dr. Peter Levine created somatic experiencing in the 1970s, and it's for addressing trauma and regulating the nervous system. It's a body-oriented approach. So instead of solely looking at thoughts and emotions, we're also observing, I lost my spot. It takes into account like the physical somatic reactions that occur naturally. The animals that are out in nature, they're not traumatized like we are. Like, we're traumatized, we live in controlled environments. The animals at the zoo live in controlled environments, our pets live in controlled environments, and we're getting traumatized because we're not allowing our body and our nervous system to do what it would normally do. Like, if you watch an animal out in nature being chased by something, and you continue watching them, when they're done, they're shaking, they're releasing the trauma off of their bodies, and And when we get in a car accident, we're like, oh my God, and then, oh, we have to talk to people, oh my God, and there's people, and I can't cry, and I have to get my insurance card, and da-da-da-da. And so, or I can't talk in the Kingdom Hall, or I can't express myself because my dad's gonna hit me, or, you know, whatever it is. So those all get locked up in what we call the trauma vortex. So Peter Levine, he developed this by just observing animals in the wild, and he was like, these guys are just out here like shaking things off. And so he tried it with one of his clients, and he was validated. He like asked her to like move her body in a way that was like appropriate to whatever they were talking about, and she was able to like release trapped energy that was released and healed her trauma responses. Because we can't think our way out of trauma. Like we can go and loop and loop and loop. I don't know about you, but I went to therapy and I was like, okay, like we're gonna talk and talk and talk, but like I'm still having these responses and activated anxiety, and I don't know what this is, but Somatics helps. And yeah, just that there is a way to heal from your religious trauma, and that's about it. Yeah, so anybody here, if you're interested in somatic work, I'm offering anybody here 20% off of my sessions. If you are interested in medicine work, I'm hosting a women's retreat in Costa Rica in February 2024. And if you're in the LA area, we do ketamine circles in LA. I know I'm in Phoenix right now, but that's what I've been doing up there still, because I just moved here. Yeah, thank you for listening to me. Yes, questions?
So can you talk a little bit more about the internal family system? What is that?
Yeah, internal family system. So the guy who created it, I can't remember his name, so if anybody else does. Schwartz, yeah, thank you. When he was like sitting in therapy with people, he was noticing that there was like different parts of them that were being in dialogue with them. So like there's like the shameful part, or the little person in you, or the sad person in you, the anger person in you, and they're all there trying to keep you safe. So this shame that's coming through, it's just a part of you that's trying to keep you safe from not dying or not doing something. And so when we can have conversations and allow all these different parts of you to communicate with each other, because they don't talk to each other. They're all just talking to your ego, and that's it. And the ego's like, what the fuck is going on? But when we can like get into this space where we're just having communications with these different parts, then all of a sudden it's like you have a little family inside of you that's like, oh, I just wanted to be heard. Oh, I just wanted to be seen. And it's fine. Yeah.
You mentioned at one point, I think you said, what, like 20% maybe of people in, I don't know if it's like all religions or certain types of more overbearing religions end up with trauma, and maybe 8% don't. Is there any theory or insight as to like, either why, or if there's certain reasons why those people that experience the trauma do, or that people have certain outlooks or certain types of makeups, like internal?
Yeah, it's resiliency, like their family system, were like instilled on how to like, yeah, my teacher was talking about resiliency and capacity. So that's a really good question. I don't know if I'm like answering it correctly or like the best way. Yeah, yes.
I can answer that.
Yes, please, thank you.
I think it has to do a lot with the ability to have connection. So if you feel like you have, it could be with your family or it could be within the community, if you feel like you have that authentic connection or the ability to have those buffers, like it could even be just a few people in your life that you feel like genuine connection with, that can often be a buffer.
Yeah, safe space.
So if you don't have anyone in your life that you feel connected with, that's what the kind of lack of resiliency.
Yeah, Thank you, Katie.
I would argue that 100% of people who are indoctrinated as children into any religion are being abused and have trauma.
Yes.
Maybe they don't know it. Maybe they like where they're going, but they're being taken away from other opportunities that life offers because of some nonsense that was written down 2,000 years ago. So, you know.
I agree with you.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with that. And part of where my question was coming from, and as you were talking, I was thinking, I wonder if the people that either have more trauma or realize it, if sometimes it's just a matter of realizing it. I wonder if it's for whatever reason, there are people that get more into it and more, when you were like, I wanted to be so good at the religion. I really was into it. I really wanted to be seen as somebody that was succeeding. Whereas somebody that was like, I'm here, I'm just a kid, I'm grown, I've got to go, I'm going to go. Like maybe they either wouldn't realize it as much or
They were just like not into it and like
yeah,
just
feel it
checked out.
Feel it as much. I agree that I think there's always going to be something that hits you. I almost wonder if the more you get into it, the more you end up getting hurt when it either falls apart or you start to walk away from it or aches.
Yes.
Yes, can you tell me about your Soma practice? What does that actually involve? And then also, I have a question about how effective are you from removing this trauma, and how do we, the government is actually a religion too. It's the cult of the omnipresent state, and it's a religion. And how do we eradicate this monstrosity that has befallen us that wants to destroy humanity and the world?
That is a lot.
Answer that question.
Speech to the question.
Yes.
And we need you to answer this.
I think
In 10
We're
words
not
or
leaving
less.
until you answer
10
that
words or
question.
less.
all the leaders need to do ayahuasca.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's how we heal it.
Yeah.
What about your Soma practice? What's that involve?
Somatic practice?
Ma'am, can you explain what that actually involves?
Yeah, so it's just involving getting in touch with your body and your nervous system. The first couple of sessions, people are like, what are we doing? Why is she having me look everywhere? Like, what? I don't understand. But it takes time to establish safety. Like your nervous system, like a lot of folks' nervous system, we're get so disconnected from ourselves. So when we come into these spaces, it's all about like first establishing safety within yourself, within the practitioner, and then really like, oh, I see that there's anger coming through, or I see that there's sadness coming through, this frustration. Like let's sit with that. Let's just be with it and notice it. Where is it living in your body? How does it feel to sit in this body? What are the sensations there? And it's more about a dance more than anything, and it's a flow. Like you as you're leading it, and I'm just there observing and making sure that you're in a safe space to like get into those places in your body that want to be felt and seen and heard and expressed.
And do you use EMDR with that at all?
No, I don't do EMDR.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you find that those that you're working with that suffer from religious trauma, it's a combination of the familial pressures that were put on outside of the church as well? Like they were trying to live up to the familial ideology of what the church was supposed to do for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're trying to like stay in connection with your community and trying to like, be who they told you that you are supposed to be. And so yeah, there's a lot of pressure there, and like that also comes through like people pleasing. Like a lot of people with religious trauma are a lot of people pleasing coming through, and not remembering like, wait, what do I like? Wait, do I even like that? Do I like eggs? Do I even like this thing that everybody else enjoys? So yeah, absolutely. Any other questions? Oh yeah.
Another one. Are there any medicines that you find are more helpful, or is it really just person by person and whatever they
I think it's everybody's, what you feel called to. If somebody is like, oh, I want to heal from religious trauma and I've never done a psychedelic, I would never be like, go to 5-MeO-DMT, But like 5-MeO-DMT really helped me.
I know,
So
why not?
I mean, they could if
Yeah.
they want to, they feel like it,
Sure.
if they're feeling called to it, absolutely. But most, I'd say like most of the people who come to me are like, I'm really nervous and I only want to start with mushrooms. I'm like, yes, start there. You know? Yeah. My mom's first time was 5-MeO DMT, so it was really powerful.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah, I did psychedelics with my family now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any like common themes that you see working with people with religious trauma? Like people generally have this and they heal X, or some kind of like.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I don't think anybody knows. They just know they don't feel good and they're not sure why. And most of the time, it's this conflict between Satan and God. And so when we're in the psychedelic space, that's usually the most challenging ones. And then when they come out, they're like, oh my God, now I don't feel fearful here and I don't feel fearful there. And oh, I'm noticing that I can have conversations with people all of a sudden, like all of these trauma responses that they didn't even know existed, all of a sudden healed. All because they were able to like get right with perceived Satan and a perceived God that may or may not exist. Oh, yes.
So is your practice here now?
Yeah, I just moved. Yeah, I moved here November 1st, so I'm here now.
Fabulous. Okay, this one.
Adam?
Could some religious trauma just be like you're being your authentic self, but it goes against your belief system, and that can lead to like internal guilt and shame? Could be that.
Yes, absolutely. Like they're afraid to like even be seen or be felt because they're like, oh, I don't know. I was told not to do this. I might die or go to hell. Did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was wondering, like, how do you use somatic experiencing just like as integration tool after the journey? Like you're sitting with people like one-on-one, or?
Yeah, sometimes I use it before too, because I want to make sure folks are like ready, like you're able to regulate first. And sometimes people are ready to go right away, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. And then sometimes it's like, let's have a few sessions. Let's see what fears are going to come through, or what can we heal first before going in. And yeah, absolutely afterwards. I find it really, really helpful because, sometimes it's hard to have words in psychedelic spaces, and it's hard to integrate through thought. And so when we come in through somatic work, which has a lot of imagery that comes through, it's like, oh yeah, this was like my psychedelic experience. It's like a joke I have sometimes with my clients when we're integrating, like, who needs psychedelics when we have somatic work? But it's still really beautiful. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up because I've been thinking a lot. We talk a lot about integration, and I think that breath work is so important, especially to have a good outcome and one that you can, better understand when you're integrating later. And somatic experiencing and knowing how to control yourself when you're in semi-stressful or more stressful situations is so important, so that you don't like blow yourself out, But I loved what you said, and what I wanted to hear more from you about was that idea of when you have trauma, specifically religious trauma, because it's your whole framework of the world that you're growing up in, you learn, like you said, not to trust yourself, and which takes away your power. And for me, like, healing is remembering my power, right? Remembering and not being powerful, not being enforced, but being empowered. And trust has such a big thing, so I would love to hear more.
Yeah, I love that you just said, I think, yeah, because I'm not it's not a power dynamic between others, it's bringing my own power back within myself and having that self-trust and finding that intuition, that life force, that the Kundalini energy that's running through my system, that's my life force. That's the power that drives me into who I am, communications that I have, the community that I have in my relationships with others and within myself. It's this, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so, listen, if it's okay to hold back a little bit, the 20% thing, I was brought up Mormon. And so as you were talking about everything, both internal and external, I'm like, yeah, I remember that. I've done it. My dad was the bishop of our ward, which was the same thing as the priest. And you know, I just kind of broke out of it when I was 18. I mean, I had philosophical differences with it when I was 10. And, you know, after that, it's like, okay, so you have all these things going on. And I know, like, I think the reason it's 20% and not higher is because there are some personality types that just like the structure of a religion. And you know, as far as how strict it is and where they're at on the scale of all that, you know, it's probably a gradient. I'm like the opposite of my dad. I'm, you know, 100% experiential. Go out there and figure things out for yourself, explore, create, dive deep into things. Yeah, anyway.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, there's a lot of similarities with Mormonism. I totally agree, and I think that people want to be told what to do. Like they don't want to have that agency, and there's some kind of like a comfort in it too. Like just tell me what to do. I don't know, just do it. Like I like going to a gym where they just tell me what to do. I don't want to think about my gym routine. You know, it's like just show up, make easy button.
I'm a personal trust.
Nice segue.
Yeah.
I feel very fortunate that I was brought up by a family that let me decide for myself. You know, my mom took me to church when I was like 7, and I remember going into this group thing, and the preacher like talking to us all and telling us this and that and the other. And for whatever reason, even at that age, I just saw straight through the facade, and I was like, you're lying. You know, there's no way you know this. There's no way anyone could know the things you're saying or that you were so certain of. Bullshit. So I called bullshit. I became an atheist, which I was until psychedelics, funny enough. And you know, what psychedelics showed me though was that all of these religions, you know, are built upon the things that we see in the psychedelic experiences. I mean, you know, even Islam, like Muhammad, to me, there's no question he had some form of mental, you know, difference that made him either schizophrenic, whatever it was, to hear the messages that he heard and to act the way he acted in his life. The psychedelic experience is more real than real. That's what everybody says it has, right? It has a real experience. They go, see, more real than anything I've ever experienced. Well, there was always psychedelics, so people did them, people had experiences, they didn't know how to deal with it, and they wrote stuff down, and now we still follow it for some reason, you know. But it's important that, you know, we try to break these kids away from that because it's so damaging. It's so damaging to children. They can't. They have to trust adults. That's the only way they survive. It's a survival instinct to follow what you're taught, and so it's hard to break away from that. Just like this guy over here with the, you know, Mormon stuff. I've known so many Mormons in my life that we're really close friends, and gosh, they're just tortured, and they don't even know it.
Yeah.
Some of the nicest people in the world, but it's terrible with it.
Yes.
Are you able to talk about what happens to children before they've reached this age of reasoning and they're having this programming being put on them because they're not able to defend against it because their minds are just like sponges at that age?
Totally. Yeah, you're learning from your experience. Your environment is everything that you learn within the first 7 years is like your default mode network. Like you're just following the humans that are around, and our frontal cortex isn't done developing till what, we're 22? 25? Yeah. And Jehovah's Witnesses, for instance, like you're baptized at 13, 12, 14, 16, whatever age, and you're supposed to like follow this forever. And if you ever mess up or sin, your whole community and family will disown you. Like I don't think that children should be, they should figure out what they want when they're older. Unfortunate that our government is ran by Christianity.
Yeah.
Psychopaths.
Yeah.
It sounds like, I'm gonna ask if this is fair to say, but like that your family, you know, 10, 15, 20 years ago would not have been on board with what you guys are doing today, right? And it sounds like that's been a transition. You sound like you did some stuff with your family. So can you talk about that, how you guys all navigated that?
Totally, we've healed a lot actually, and we've, you know, when trauma happens in a family, usually dismantles the family or it brings them together. So I've been given the okay, the green light to tell this story because my brother wants me to tell everybody. But my brother was a heroin addict for a really long time, and it took him, I think he had his 4th overdose, and he did ibogaine and 5-MeO DMT, and he's been needle free for 6 years. Like, he won't even touch that stuff. Yeah. Thank you. And I think that's what brought our family together, to be honest. My dad was like, oh, wait, so he did that and then this happened? He can't deny it, that this is really happening. They still go to the church, but they won't disown us. We've had these conversations. We've all sat in ceremony before and opened these conversations. And they're just kind of like, our family is our family, and then whatever is happening at the church is happening at the church. And they are amazing. They've been able to separate that. Yeah. There was something else I was gonna say too. Oh, and me coming up here and speaking, I've had a few conversations with them. Like, I'm not trying to get people to go away from their religion, and I've had, people who are still in the religion who are Jehovah's Witnesses come and talk to me because I know their language, and I'm not trying to convert them out of it, but I'm gonna ask them really hard questions. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
How do you, so in your experience, people with religious trauma, do they find more peace in sort of understanding the perspective of the people who traumatize them? Or is the anger more helpful? Like, for me, I also grew up Mormon, shout out, I'll be over there. And like, I'm more than 20% for sure. I did the whole thing, dog. I went on a mission, I did it all. And I've been, so part of me feels angry, but part of me, like in my most beautiful, like open-hearted moments, I'm like, man, they really tried hard to like give me what they thought was the truth. Like, they're both there. So I don't know, maybe if you can talk to that at all for people that you've worked with.
Yeah, there's like sacred anger. Like, absolutely, be angry and let it out. Don't try to hold that stuff in. But the anger, when you can do it safely, when you're not harming others, when you're not harming yourself, and you're able to express that anger, you are allowing that life force to come through. That piece of you that's been tucked down for a really long time is now able to be expressed, and it's like, oh my God, it feels so good afterwards and liberating. Yeah. And anger is healthy. It's just an emotion, just like everything else.
I love that. Can I speak a little bit more on that as well? I grew up Mormon, LDS, and with my own healing with psychedelics, I've actually gained more appreciation in recognizing the beauty of what the church was trying to offer, recognizing my ancestral lineage of generations of the Mormons in my family, and honoring those ancestors who were doing the best with what they had and what they knew how, because they were fleeing religious persecution too, right? So in my own healing, I've had to come as a Native woman, as a white woman, and trying to rectify both of these lineages, both of these heritage, and understanding the trauma that has been inflicted in many ways, not just religion, but through colonialism. So I have found appreciation for the church, despite its potential wounding. But there is beauty in that as well.
It's not malicious what they're doing.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Some of it is.
Thank you. Thanks for
Most of
saying
them are
that.
not malicious though.
Question. You talked about people meditating on whether or not they have trauma. And that made me wonder how many people that you're working with are aware that what they've experienced is trauma. Because thinking about the beliefs and the things that are ingrained in us as kids that are incorrect or problematic, I know for me it took a lot of years to realize those things were trauma, were things that shouldn't have happened to them. So I'm wondering how many people come to you know that they have religious trauma, or just are looking to explore and how you approach them.
I think both. I think people come for both reasons. Some folks come because they know this happened and I need help. Others are like, oh, I was raised in this religion, so it doesn't really matter. And I'm like, are you sure? let's explore this. So everybody's different. Everyone has a different experience, and and a different awareness too. Because remember, those little parts don't want to feel that. Like they're afraid to feel the shame and the guilt and the embarrassment or whatever is present. So it's all like tapping into those pieces that, yeah, just tapping into those pieces. Did I answer your question? Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, for me and for a lot of people I really want in church, a lot of the community and like the outreach and the helping each other out is remarkable. Like the willingness to catch those. I feel that makes it really hard to work in church. There's so much social pressure to stay there. Obviously, in my journey, I started going. My journey was psychic, going to psychic school. I went to the Berkeley Psychic Institute about 12 years ago. During that process was when I started to blow through a lot of that stuff that the religion had put in. And some of it was even in my astral body, like where it can travel in the cosmos versus not. So, yeah. I was in my connection with God outside.
That's beautiful. I'm so glad you got there.
Yes. Yeah, I got a comment. I too was raised Mormon.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
We are in Arizona.
That's where you're gonna find big pockets of this religious trauma and folks trying to seek a new version of spirituality that isn't so harmful. And I felt like I was forced to leave the Mormon church when my daughter came out as gay. It just was not going to be healthy for my family. So we had to leave very quickly. And that was very traumatic, that sudden move. And so I had gone from this place where I saw the world very black and white as a Mormon. And instead I emerged very angry, very bitter, against my family, against my leaders, against this ideology that had sort of sucked the life out of me and harmed my daughter. And so I've sort of been journeying with psychedelics, concerned that I was seeing the world again in black and white, but this time in an anti-Mormon kind of realm. And what I found with psychedelics is it has really, really softened my ability to hold a dialectic, to hold two things at the same time, and to be able to appreciate, like when I left the church, it disturbed my foundation like you wouldn't believe. And when I left the church, it disturbed my parents' foundation because they saw their daughter leaving, and they'd had this whole narrative built up what their family was going to look like. And so now, and the medicine helped me do that, helped me see like, oh, I actually have some things in common with my parents, that my foundation got rumbled and so did theirs, and being able to have some more compassion instead of so much anger. And I really credit the medicine for softening me post-religion.
That's perfect. So beautiful. I love that you found compassion, right? Softening. And yeah, absolutely. I've had those experiences where I've seen all religions in my psychedelic trips, and I'm like, oh, we're literally all just trying to find
walk
this.
each other home.
We're all just trying to walk each other home. That's why I don't religion isn't. I don't want to say religion's bad. It's just gotten squirrely and messed up. And it does bring the community together, which is really hard to leave, because then your family and you just have a bunch of people you can call on.
I'm interested in hearing you talk about the Satan versus God thing. Do you have how do you contextualize if somebody's sitting with that before a trip? Or before sitting with them with medicine, do you contextualize that at all, or do you just let them?
Usually people don't go into a trip wanting to access that. It just comes, unfortunately. I mean, not unfortunately, actually. But it just comes, and it's one of those things that I try to prepare people for. When I prepare somebody for a psychedelic trip, it's a month-long preparation to make sure that people know how to navigate through it. It's like having a a backpack full of tools that you could just reach out at any moment and be like, okay, if this shows up, I do this. If this shows up, I do this. If this shows up, I do this. And that way, when you do come up and you see if it's God and Satan, if that shows up for you, that you have the space and the safety around you for people who can hold that space, that can support you to go through the dark night of the soul.
I just want to say thanks for sharing and being vulnerable, because when we talk about our traumas, it makes it okay for everybody else to share. So thank you for doing that. And you mentioned Kundalini energy. There's a yoga studio right on the corner here that people who know me in here, I'm always trying to tell them, come to Kundalini class. So there's Kundalini yoga right next door.
I'll have to check it out.
On Tuesday, Thursdays, and Sundays.
Okay, thank you.
It's very helpful unpacking trauma and dealing with trauma.
Yeah, I love Kundalini yoga. It's like a lot of breath work, right? Yeah.
Before yet, I just wanted to say thank you, just the way you opened everything up and not dissing on religion and spirituality. My religious trauma is at a completely deeper, nastier level, and I hid that forever until I was in my early 20s. And once I was doing psychedelics when I was a kid as, recreation, but that really helped. It got me a deeper connection with God. Because once you go into those dark nights of the soul on trip, you go places and you better find your peace with the Creator. And so I had that peace, but once I had finally went to counseling in my early 20s, it was a couple, maybe 6 months worth of sessions, and I felt so good. I was able to share it with part of my family anyways, and then just let it go. And I've been good with it. I can joke about things now. And people are like, wow, you're pretty comfortable with yourself. You're kind of self-aware on this. Well, no, I'm still kind of traumatized by it all. I'm still pretty angry with family members and such for, hiding things. But I just really wanted, but I have such a deep connection with God, Goddess, whatever is up there, the prime Creator. I just really like that, the way you started it. I'm not dissing on anything. And there are good people in all religions, and there's really bad people in all religions. And then also, I just want to share, we were talking about Amanita muscaria.
Yeah.
Well, the word soma, are you familiar with how that associates with Amanita?
No.
Does anybody? I had to look for it real quick. I just always knew soma is a Siberian word. Their shamans called it Somatic. And Wasserman, in 1960, had to do a quick search. But it was Wasserman who titled it Soma, because it's a somatic experience that it takes you into. So it's a...
That's really cool.
Yeah, it really is. Because gosh, I know that.
It's a hypothesis.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to see if you've ever seen the show on Netflix. It's called Pray and Be Sweet.
Yes.
And I don't know if everybody, on this subject, you'll watch it with your mouth wide open.
Oh yeah.
It's unbelievable. Pray and Be Sweet. It's about the FLDS church, and it just shows you how far people can be brainwashed beyond the level you cannot even comprehend.
Yeah, I've seen it. I don't think I watched the whole thing. I was like, okay, one episode.
No triggers.
Can you talk a little bit more about the somatic treatment that you do, or how does it practically? What is it like? What are you doing? Are you massaging? Are you what is going on during your sessions with that?
Yeah, it's really about getting out of the thought, the ego mind. Not that the ego mind can't come through, but it does. But it's allowing whatever experience that you are maybe working with or wanting to heal from. It's just locating that in your body and sitting with it and allowing your body to do what it naturally wants to do, allowing your natural healer to already come through. It's kind of like a flow or a dance. So really, each session is different. I don't know what I'm going to be getting into when I open a session. Sure, there's certain ways of getting a person into that non-ordinary state, but other than that, after that, it's kind of like whatever your nervous system is wanting to do. So that can look like crying, it can look like shaking, it can look like hugging. We go into the imagery channels, so a lot of images can come through. Sometimes you can locate something in your stomach and it can feel like a ball or a color or a temperature. And you just kind of like work with it, and he usually wants to go somewhere, wants to do something, wants to be expressed in some way. Dr. Peter Levine has a lot of YouTube videos on it, and I think you can even see like example sessions on there too. And there's touch, yes, and there are some practitioners that will use touch as part of it too. You're all set? Okay, cool. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody, for taking such lovely care of Erin tonight and being so generous with your questions and responses. Everyone's so thoughtful and heartfelt. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. And of course, just a couple announcements real quick of our upcoming events. Adam's been working so hard and so diligent with these Monday night events, so I really just want to make sure we thank you to Adam for everybody's on. With that being said, he's going to keep the series going on, I think, through July. So every Monday night, we're going to continue to meet here at 7 o'clock. And that'll be my segue. Next Monday, I'm actually going to be offering my speech or my lecture. It'll be on shamanism and ancestry work around psychedelics. So I'll actually be deconstructing shamanism and then going into what ancestry work and healing has been, especially just my perspective as a Navajo woman and as an Anglo woman, reconciling these split parts of myself and what that looks like with ancestry work. So that's next Monday, but on Sunday, our group is also hosting another shamanic breathwork and Hape circle, a few people have been to. This Sunday, 2 to 5 at the Healing Tree Collective in Tempe. And then the following Sunday, Trinara will also be hosting an integration circle. So those of you who are working with plant medicine or doing other work with non-ordinary experiences such as breath work, or you've had a near-death experience, this is what Integration Circle is for as well. So I invite you to all to come and join us the following Sunday, the 11th, for Integration Circle at 2:30. And all of these are on our meetup sites and our Facebook pages. And yeah, I want to thank Meraki and the hard work that they offer us every Monday night as well. So thank you. And everyone tell
Just get on real Andrea has messaged me on Facebook and such. So just get on there and let's figure out a date. And I think the 3rd of June, I think that's a Saturday. What's that? Yeah, I live over on the west side. Congrats. Well, right now I'm taking care of a house off of 59th and Cactus, and then I live right on the Thunderbird and I-17. So yeah, so really, this is really nice. If it was anywhere else, like downtown, if it was any further, I'd probably just go, ain't gonna happen. But this was so good. You guys have a great facility. It's really, really cool. So yeah, let's get together and talk and hash things out.
Like a weekday evening work for you?
Yeah, that definitely does. I just need a few days of notice. I do construction work, and so that's what I'm like after my days. You know, I'm dirty, I'm ugly, I'm covered in insulation sometimes anymore. I've probably had a couple of beers throughout my day, or come home and just had a beer. And I'm just like, okay, I'm done. I got out of the house.
Kind of construction?
I'm a handyman, so I do just about everything. And so, other than full-on building, not really up there is what I want to do full-on building. I want to do full-on real building. And so that's good.
You've got a lot of experience to draw.
I've just always gotten into this. Between solar and battery operated things, as long as I've got a really nice generator, I just wanted to buy a yard sale. I wanted $200 for a really nice generator. It's brand new. We're like 100 feet of 240 cord and 100 feet of 120 cord. Yeah, electrical cord.
I mean, if you're gonna go buy it, that's
Oh my God. Then it would have been $200 a piece for each of those. I mean, they're huge. And so I was like, yeah, that's a buy.
I'll go ahead and take that. Thanks, yours.
So we got power out there. What's good? It's just for water. Maybe we do a ceremony of rain. Rain. Do a ceremony for rain. Maybe that's what we really need.
Does it rain? I mean,
It
Winslow
does.
pretty deserty.
Well, this past winter, it was covered in snow and rain. It really was. But when I saw that watering hole, I think it was in September. I think it was first snowfall. When we had that freak snowfall.
Rainy. Watson's was pretty drastic last summer.
And it was that very first snowfall that happened like late September or something weird like that. And I was there a week, like that weekend. Well, the pond had a lot of mud in it. I was like, oh, this is really nice. It has water. It retains moisture. I go back early spring, I guess 6 weeks ago. It was bone dry. I'm like, okay, maybe it's not that close to the water table or what's going on here. So once again, they're called swales, S-W-A-L-E-S. It's a Celtic word, I guess. We're making that water. And then you create estuaries to go to the swale or like canals and ditches or burns where water flows to go into the larger swale. And I was going to do that anyways, and I just kept looking for words. What is this thing? And it just popped up.
It's like an aqueduct system.
Yeah, exactly. That's precisely what it is. And there's like 8 of them out there in that area. My buddy was, on Google Earth, he's like, hey, I found a bunch of these out there. And I'm like, darn it, okay, I guess I got to own one of them because I'm going to dig my own. I'm going to dig my own. I get a lot of earth that way for building blocks, but I don't know if I really want to do it. So the system's there, just got to play with it. And play with others and head straight. What is possible?
Why did you pick that piece of
I've been looking forever, and I found a couple in St. John's, maybe in 2018. It was on the top of the Mesa Plateau. It was 83 acres for $30,000. The problem was, you had to get to the top of the Mesa Plateau. There was an actual HOA where you had to pay $200 a year just to maintain the roads. Beyond that, they didn't care. There was a water table within the mesa, apparently, so there was a well there. It was amazing, but I was like, I'm going to have to buy an entirely new vehicle to get there the short way, or an entirely new vehicle to get there the long way, which is 20 miles in on dirt roads. And I couldn't forget that. So I just kept playing around with things. I had a huge settlement. I got into a fight on a cyclist. I was hit by a car, and so I had a settlement. So it was I've just been waiting and waiting. Once I have the money in the bank, it's like, okay, I'm either going to keep buying bicycle stuff, pay off more bills, or get some damn grant. And that's what me and a bunch of friends have been talking about. And finally, we're going to just like dropping the money on it. I'm doing it. Make it happen. You're all invited. I don't care. And everybody keeps, well, as soon as I get my profits, well, if you're okay with desert, it's there. And pay just whatever. Figure it out. Okay, we're ready for takeoff.
I can see
What?